All right. So, uh, you know how sometimes you get those like travel jitters,
Yeah.
especially when you're going somewhere kind of off the beaten path?
Hmm.
Well, today we're going way beyond those like typical travel anxieties. We're diving deep
Hmm.
into the 10 most dangerous airports in the world.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is based on an article from 10mosttoday.com. You actually shared this article with us a little while ago.
Yeah.
And we're super excited to unpack what makes these airports so notoriously tricky, even for the most like seasoned pilots out there.
I think it's fascinating,
Yeah.
how these airports, they really push the boundaries of aviation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're going to explore how geography and weather and even local communities contribute to these unique and sometimes pretty scary conditions at these locations.
So from like short runways perched on cliffs to landings in almost total darkness, this list is it's really incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's a testament to just the incredible skill and bravery of pilots around the world. So are
Wow.
you ready to kind of embark on this global journey with us?
Let's do it.
Okay, first stop.
Yeah.
We're taking a virtual trip to this tiny little island in the Caribbean. It's called Saba Island, home to the Juancho E. Rausquin Airport.
Okay.
Now imagine you're coming in for a landing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the runway
Mm-hmm.
is basically the size of a postage stamp.
It really is. I mean, it is officially the shortest commercial runway in the whole world, just a mere 400 meters. To put that in perspective, a Boeing 747 needs at least, 3 times that length to land safely.
Wow.
I mean, this airport is a perfect example of how just limited space really dictates the design.
And, when you think about the fact that this island is essentially a volcanic rock,
Mm-hmm.
like jetting out of the ocean, makes the engineering feat of even building an airport there that much more impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what kind of techniques do pilots have to use when landing on such a short runway?
Well, they use something called the short field landing technique. And basically, it requires a much steeper descent than normal and very precise control of the aircraft's speed and altitude. Yeah. There's very little room for error, making this airport like a true test of pilot skill.
Okay, so next up, we're heading to the Himalayas.
Wow.
The roof of the world's right.
Mm-hmm.
Home to some of the most dramatic landscapes and landings that you can imagine. We're going to Lukla Airport in Nepal, the gateway to Mount Everest Base Camp.
Oh, this airport is legendary. Adventurers and mountaineers know all about it. It's nestled between these towering mountains with an incredibly short runway that slopes uphill and ends with a sheer drop.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and to add to the challenge, the mountain weather is really unpredictable. It can roll in really quickly and makes visibility a major concern.
And I read somewhere that there's often no air traffic control at Lukla. So I know you know a lot about aviation. Most airports rely on air traffic controllers to direct planes, prevent collisions. So how do pilots navigate this safely?
You're right. It's really unique because there is no air traffic control at Lukla. So pilots rely very heavily on what's called visual flight rules. So basically they have to be super vigilant, observing the other aircraft in the area, communicating their positions to each other. It's like a high-stakes environment for sure. It demands exceptional judgment from these pilots and really good communication skills.
Wow. Okay, so from the towering peaks of the Himalayas, let's head back to the Caribbean. Okay. This time to a beach party with a twist. Get your cameras ready because we're landing at St. Martin's Princess Juliana International Airport.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen this?
This one's famous.
It's famous.
It's famous for that incredibly low approach over Maho Beach.
Mm-hmm.
The planes fly just a few feet above the sunbathers. You've probably seen those photos of people standing there they could reach out and touch it.
Right.
A jumbo jet.
It's got to be a photographer's paradise. But probably a nightmare for anyone trying to relax on the beach. But beyond the spectacle, though, the short runway and those frequent crosswinds, I bet those pose some real challenges for pilots.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the runway is just over 2,100 meters, which is, shorter than ideal for these large aircraft. And then you combine that with those unpredictable gusts that sweep across the island.
Yeah.
Landings here require serious precision. Pilots have to really carefully adjust their approach and maintain control to ensure a safe touchdown.
So we've got mountains, short runways, beach landings. What other extreme environments do we have on this list?
Well, how about landing on an icy runway with active volcanoes in the distance?
Oh, wow.
Welcome to Greenland's Narsarsuaq Airport.
Okay, now that sounds intense.
Yeah.
I can imagine the freezing temperatures and potential for blizzards make this airport particularly demanding. But you mentioned volcanoes.
Oh,
How do
yeah.
those factor into the equation?
Well, active volcanoes in the region pose a pretty significant risk to aviation. They can spew ash into the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
And that ash can damage aircraft engines and really reduce visibility.
Wow.
So pilots operating in that region have to constantly be aware of any volcanic activity and adjust their flight plans accordingly.
So not only are you dealing with, icy conditions, limited visibility,
Yeah.
but you also have to worry about potential engine failure
Yeah.
from volcanic ash. It's amazing that planes can even land there.
It is. It's truly a testament to the skill of the pilots and the resilience of these aircraft.
Yeah.
But speaking of challenging approaches, our next stop takes us to Honduras,
Okay.
where we're going to experience this stomach-churning descent into Toncontin International Airport.
This one caught my eye because the article mentioned something about passenger stomachs rising during the approach. What makes this landing so memorable?
Well, Toncontin is located in a valley surrounded by mountains. And that unique topography requires pilots to make this really steep 45-degree turn to align with the runway. And that rapid change in altitude can be pretty jarring for passengers.
Okay, so that sharp turn
Yeah.
sounds a bit like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it does kind of, doesn't it?
Is that standard procedure for all landings, or is it specific to this airport's location?
Oh, it's totally unique to Toncontin. Just because of that location and the surrounding terrain.
Yeah.
It requires pilots to have this deep understanding of the airport's specific approach procedures and the ability to execute them perfectly, especially considering the winds that can whip through that valley.
Wow. So we've covered tiny island runways, precarious mountain landings, a beachside flyby,
Yeah.
and a stomach-churning descent into a valley. I'm starting to think that maybe a little turbulence isn't so bad after all.
Maybe not.
But
We're only halfway through our list. Of the world's most dangerous airports, there are still more fascinating and hair-raising landings to explore.
okay, all right, so we've already tackled some pretty intense landings, from the Caribbean to the Himalayas. But this list, it just keeps getting more and more intriguing.
Right.
Where are we headed next on our global journey of perilous airports?
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit from those extreme climates that we've been talking about. And let's talk about an airport that presents a very different challenge. Madeira Airport in Portugal.
Okay.
This one's known for its unique location and the incredible engineering feat that was required to extend its runway.
Madeira. Okay, so that's that stunning island, right?
Yeah.
Known for its volcanic peaks and lush landscapes. It sounds more like a vacation paradise than a dangerous airport. What's the catch?
Right. Well, see, the airport, it's situated between these towering cliffs and the Atlantic Ocean with notoriously strong and unpredictable winds.
Oh, wow.
So to kind of address that short runway and the safety concerns, right, they extended the runway back in 2000, but they had to get really creative. They built it out over the ocean, supported by 180 massive columns.
Wait, so a portion of the runway is essentially floating on stilts over the ocean.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine what that looks like from the cockpit during landing. It must be a view that's both incredible and slightly terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Wow.
It really is this testament to human ingenuity and engineering, but I'm sure it adds a whole extra layer of complexity for pilots during landing.
I bet. Speaking of pushing the boundaries of aviation, let's journey back to the Himalayas, this time to Bhutan's Paro Airport. Now, this one, I know, is known for being one of the most challenging airports in the world because of its location and the very limited number of pilots that are actually qualified to land there.
You're absolutely right.
Wow.
Paro Airport, it's nestled in this deep valley, over 7,000 feet above sea level, surrounded by Himalayan peaks that soar over 18,000 feet.
Wow.
I mean, the terrain is incredibly demanding, and the weather conditions can change in an instant, which just adds to the complexity.
So how do pilots even, navigate a landing in such a tight and unforgiving environment? It's got to require just an incredible level of skill and precision.
It absolutely does. Because of that challenging terrain and the unpredictable weather, flights are only permitted during daylight hours and under visual meteorological conditions.
Oh, wow.
So that means pilots have to rely on what they can see outside the cockpit and make these critical decisions based on their visual assessment of the situation.
Wow. I remember reading that only a handful of pilots worldwide are even qualified to land at Paro Airport. What makes these pilots so unique?
Well, these pilots, they undergo incredibly rigorous training and have extensive experience flying in mountainous terrain.
Okay.
They have to be able to navigate these narrow valleys, deal with strong crosswinds, and make these precise landings on a very short runway, all while being super aware of that surrounding terrain.
It's incredible to think about the level of expertise and mental fortitude required to land a plane safely in those conditions. It's almost like they're navigating a three-dimensional maze with incredibly high stakes.
It's a great analogy. Now let's change our scenery once again from the majestic Himalayas. We're heading to Okinawa, Japan, to explore an airport that presents yet another kind of challenge, MCA's Futenma.
MCS Futenma. That sounds more like a military base than like a commercial airport. What's the danger there?
You're right. MCS Futenma, it's a United States Marine Corps air station.
Okay.
The danger here doesn't lie in the terrain or the weather, but in its location. See, the air station, it's situated right in the middle of this densely populated urban area, with homes and businesses located very close to the runway.
Oh gosh, that sounds like a recipe for disaster, having those military aircraft.
Oh,
Including like fighter jets and Ospreys operating so close to a residential area.
Yeah.
It's got to create a lot of tension and concern for the local community.
oh, you can imagine. The noise pollution alone is significant. And then, of course, there are the concerns about safety, especially with that potential for accidents. It's a very complex situation for sure, and it really highlights the challenges of trying to balance military operations with the needs and concerns of the people that live there.
It's definitely a sensitive issue with no easy answers. For our final stop on this whirlwind tour of the world's most dangerous airports, we're traveling back in time to an airport that no longer exists, Hong Kong's Kai Tak Airport.
Kai Tak, a legendary airport.
Yeah.
It closed in 1998, but it was known for its hair-raising landings.
Oh, wow.
And it earned the nickname the mother of all scary airports.
Wow. It sounds like Kai Tak has reached almost like mythical status among aviation enthusiasts. What made it so legendary, even though it's no longer operational?
Okay, so picture this. You have a single runway jutting out into Victoria Harbor, surrounded by mountains on one side, and a dense cityscape of skyscrapers on the other.
Oh, my God.
Pilots had to deal with these treacherous crosswinds, make this sharp turn at a very low altitude to line up with the runway, and all while flying incredibly close to buildings.
Just visualizing that approach gives me chills. That must have been a heart-stopping experience for passengers.
It was a white-knuckle ride, for sure. And for pilots, it was a true testament to their skill and their nerve. Kai Tak represented the pinnacle of challenging landings, and even though it's gone, its legend lives on in aviation history.
As we've journeyed through this list of dangerous airports, it's clear that, like, danger can take many forms. Extreme weather, challenging terrain, those short runways, even proximity to populated areas.
Exactly, and it's important to remember that pilots operating in these conditions, they face incredible pressure and responsibility. They rely on their training and their experience and their split-second decision-making to navigate these challenges and ensure everyone on board is safe.
It's a good reminder that while we often take the convenience and speed of air travel for granted, there's this whole world of skill and precision and courage happening behind the scenes to make it all possible. You know, it's amazing to think about how pilots can like handle those extreme conditions that we've been talking about. And, you know, as an aviation enthusiast, you probably know that like technology plays a huge role in aviation safety these days. But I'm wondering, will technology eventually overcome these extreme airport challenges that we've been talking about? Or will places like Lukla and Paro, you know, always demand that extra level of human skill
Yeah.
and intuition?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that, you know, aviation experts all over the world are kind of constantly grappling with. While technology is definitely advancing at like a rapid pace with things like enhanced GPS systems and autopilot capabilities, there's still a really strong argument for the, you know, irreplaceable value of human judgment, especially in these like really unique and unpredictable environments that we've been talking about.
Right. I guess you can't program a computer to anticipate like a sudden gust of wind in a mountain valley.
Right.
Or to make a split-second decision when faced with some kind of unexpected condition.
Exactly. And let's not forget the human factor of communication. You know, pilots need to be able to communicate really effectively with each other and with air traffic control, even in situations where, you know, technology might be limited.
Or
unreliable.
Absolutely. So, you know, thinking about these airports that push the boundaries of like what's possible in aviation makes you wonder, like, what does the future hold? Will we one day be talking about like routine landings on Mars?
Yeah.
Or underwater airports? Like, what do you think?
I mean, that would be a fascinating deep dive for sure. It's certainly within the realm of possibility, right? As technology keeps advancing, we might see airports in even more extreme and unconventional locations. But I have a feeling that there will always be a need for those skilled pilots who can really handle the unexpected and make those critical decisions when technology alone isn't enough.
I think you're right. There's something like inherently human about that desire to explore and to kind of push the limits of what we think is achievable, right? And these airports are like a real testament to that spirit of adventure and ingenuity.
Absolutely. And for those of us who aren't pilots, these airports offer this really unique glimpse into a world that most of us will only ever experience as passengers. They remind us of that incredible skill and courage that it takes to navigate the skies, especially in these challenging environments.
So, listener, we've taken you on this whirlwind tour of some of the most dangerous airports in the world. We've seen how geography, weather, and even politics can create these unique challenges for pilots. We've witnessed landings on cliffside runways, in icy terrains, and even just feet above sunbathers on a beach. Which of these airports would you be most or least willing to fly into, and why? Let us know.
It's a question worth pondering for sure. Each of these airports has its own story to tell, and they all offer a very unique perspective on the limits of human capability and the ever-evolving world of aviation.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. We've explored the danger, the skill, and the wonder of these incredible airports. And hopefully this deep dive has given you a newfound appreciation for the complexity of aviation and the people who make it all possible. So until next time, safe travels, everyone.